Right now, in a lab, a lamb is finishing growing inside a clear plastic bag. No mother, no womb. Just fluid, a tube where the umbilical cord used to be, and a heartbeat. It kicks. It opens its eyes. And it has no idea it's the first draft of how your great-grandchildren might be born. This actually happened. In 2017, a team of doctors sealed premature lambs inside fluid-filled bags they called biobags, hooked each cord to a machine that did the work of a placenta, and waited. The lambs didn't just survive, they grew. Their wool came in, their lungs finished forming, their brains wired up right on schedule, as if nothing unusual was happening at all. The machine was never meant to replace a mother. It was built to save babies born too early. But the moment it worked, it quietly asked a much bigger question. If a body outside the body can finish the job, how much of the job did the body ever need to do? Because here's the thing. You think being born is fixed. One of the few things about being human that has worked the same way since the very beginning. 2 people, 9 months, 1 body carrying all the risk. But almost every piece of that is already coming apart in laboratories right now. And by the time your great-grandchildren arrive, the way you were made might be the strangest part of your whole story. Start with where the change already happened, because you've stopped noticing it. In 1978, a baby named Louise Brown was born in England, and the entire world lost its mind. She was the first human ever conceived outside a body, in a dish. People called her unnatural. They said scientists were playing God. There were bomb threats. Today, that same procedure has a name you've heard 1,000 times, IVF, and it has quietly produced over 12 million people. Some of them are your friends. You would never know. In a single human lifetime, making a baby in a lab went from a horror to a Tuesday. That's the pattern to watch, not a sudden leap. A line that keeps moving while everyone insists it's standing still. IVF moved conception out of the body, but you still needed an egg, a sperm, and a womb to grow in. So follow each of those, one at a time, and watch them come loose. Start with the womb, because that's the lamb. Scale that biobag up, give it another decade or 2 of refinement, and you get something that already has a name, an artificial womb. A baby grown entirely outside a person. No morning sickness, no bed rest, no risk of dying in childbirth, which for most of human history was one of the most dangerous things a woman could do. For most of history, a woman stood a real chance of not surviving the very thing that brought her child into the world. The machine doesn't lower that danger. It removes her from it completely. The upside is enormous, but so is the strangeness. A generation grown in a row of machines, watched through clear plastic, never once carried. Held for the first time on the day they're switched off. A womb outside the body is one thing, but what about the egg and the sperm? Surely you still need those. For now. In a lab in Japan, researchers took ordinary skin cells from a mouse, rewound them into a blank state, and coaxed them into becoming eggs. Real eggs. They fertilized them, and healthy pups were born, grew up, and had pups of their own. Then they did something stranger. They made eggs from the skin cells of male mice, which means in mice, 2 fathers have already produced living young. The technique is called in vitro gametogenesis, and teams around the world are racing to make it work in humans. If they do, a scrap of skin becomes a possible child. Age stops mattering. 2 eggs or 2 sperm stop being a wall. A single person could, in theory, provide both halves. So count what's left. The womb, optional. The egg and sperm, printable from a cheek swab. The 2-parent, 1-body model that every human who has ever lived came from, suddenly just one option on a menu. And we haven't even reached the part that changes who the child actually is. Because once a baby is made in a lab, you don't make one. You make several. And then you choose. This already happens. Clinics can now read the entire genome of a days-old embryo, a ball of cells smaller than a grain of sand, and hand the parents a report. This one has a higher risk of heart disease. This one, diabetes. This one scores higher for what they carefully call cognitive traits. The parents pick. Right now, it's framed as avoiding illness, and that's a real defensible thing. But the same tool that screens out a disease can just as easily screen for a preference. And the line between those two is a lot thinner than anyone selling it wants to admit. Screening only chooses between embryos that already exist. But what about rewriting one directly? In 2018, a scientist in China announced he had done exactly that. He edited the DNA of 2 embryos, trying to make them resistant to a virus, and let them be born. 2 little girls. The world was horrified. He went to prison. Nearly every country slammed the door shut. But a door being shut is not the same as the room being empty. The knowledge exists now. It doesn't unexist because we're uncomfortable with it. Somewhere, in some lab, in some decade, someone opens that door again. They usually do.
And here's the part that quietly decides who this happens to first.
None of it will be cheap. The first artificial wombs, the first printed eggs, the first carefully chosen genomes will cost more than a house. Which means the future won't arrive for everyone on the same morning. For a while, some children will be screened, edited, and grown in perfect safety, while others are still born the old way, because that's all their parents could afford. The oldest divide there is, who has money and who doesn't, written for the first time straight into the body. So put it all together and stand 200 years from now, looking back at you. Your great-granddaughter is deciding how to have her own child. She scrolls through a genome the way you'd pick a phone plan. She chooses 2 eggs because she wants to raise a daughter with her wife and have them both be the mother. Their child grows in a clean, quiet machine, monitored every second, safe from every risk that used to kill mothers and babies alike. To her, this is love. This is careful. This is responsible. And then someone mentions how you were made, that a person grew inside another person, unmonitored for 9 months, that nobody checked the genome, so it was pure luck whether the child came out healthy, that the birth itself could have killed them both, and sometimes did, that 2 people just more or less hoped for the best. To your great-granddaughter, that won't sound natural. It'll sound reckless, a little primitive. The way you might feel about someone who refused all medicine and trusted that the illness would simply pass. She won't envy how you were born. She'll be quietly, genuinely relieved she wasn't. That's the part that's hard to sit with. Every step in this chain gets defended the same way, and every defense is reasonable. Save the premature baby, spare the mother the danger, give the child the healthiest possible start. Nobody is twirling a mustache. Each door is opened by someone trying to help, for a reason you'd probably accept if it were your own child on the table. That's exactly how the line keeps moving while everyone swears it isn't. Not through some villain. Through 1,000 kind, careful, sensible decisions. Each one a small step nobody could argue with. Until you look up, and the whole map has changed. We tend to think the future arrives as a shock, that one morning it's simply here. But it never actually works that way. It arrives the way IVF did, as a scandal, then a debate, then a service, then a Tuesday. The lamb in the bag isn't science fiction. It's a saved life, right now, that happens to be standing on the exact spot where the road forks. So here's the uncomfortable version. There is nothing sacred protecting the way you were born. No law of nature that keeps it the default. It survives only as long as it stays the safest, easiest option. And it is already, quietly, beginning to lose that title. Not this year, maybe not this century, but the direction is set, and it only points one way. You were made the old way. 2 people, 1 body, 9 months, and a great deal of luck. For all of human history, that was simply what being born meant. And you might be one of the last people for whom it still does. Somewhere down your own bloodline, a child who has never once thought about it will hear how their kind used to come into the world, back at the very beginning. And they'll be amazed anyone survived it at all.